guys, welcome to Beautiful and Beloved. I'm Amber Newberry and I am just so glad that you're here today. Today we have a really important post for you. It is February, which means Valentine's Day happens this month. And something that I really want to share with you all is about your unbelovedness. No matter where you find yourself this month, if you are in a relationship, if you are in a marriage, if you are not, if you are single, if you are going on 10 years of being single and praying for God to bring the right spouse to you, I want to talk to you today, all of you, about your unbelovedness, because the truth is that our belovedness doesn't come from the people in this world who love us. It is nice to be loved by people in this world, but people in this world will always let you down. Just 100% of the time that will happen. So the kind of belovedness I'm talking about is your belovedness that comes from God, your Creator. And your belovedness doesn't have to be earned. It's something that's inherent. It's something that's inside of you because of who created you. Because Jesus lives in you and you live in Jesus, and that means that you are valuable and you are loved and you are cherished and you are a treasure. Regardless of how other people see you or treat you, your actual truth, the actual most true thing about you is that you are beloved. And so when we look through God's Word, there are lots of different names for God throughout the Bible. People call him the God who sees me. They say the God who hears me. Abba, Father. The God who redeems me. The God of peace. The God of hope. He has all sorts of names in the Bible. There are also all sorts of things that he calls us. He calls us his children. He calls us his beloved. He calls us beautiful. He calls us his treasure. He calls us holy and righteous and redeemed. And I know that in this world it is hard to believe that those things are true about all of us, right? It's hard to believe they're true about us. It's hard to believe they're true about some other people, but they are truth. And they are the most true things about you. So how do we go about believing that those things are actually true? Like, what do we do? Something that I personally do is something I call, hey Jesus. And that is when I am beginning to doubt my own belovedness, when I am beginning to think that I am less than, that I am not worthy of time or attention or care, then I know that I'm starting to believe the lies of the enemy. And I know that I need to take a minute to let those go. So, when I start to believe those things, I take a minute, I separate myself from wherever I am, usually to a bathroom, and I shut the door and I lock it and I say, hey Jesus, real fast, I am believing that I am unworthy of time or attention, or I am believing that I hold less value than I know that I do. I am believing that my voice doesn't matter. I am believing that my heart doesn't matter. I am believing these things, God, and I know that they're not true. So can you please replace the lie with the truth? And 100% of the time, sisters and brothers, he does. He comes through and he says, this is how I see you. This is who you are to me. And that's different every time I go to him, and it'll be different for you than it is for me. But it's always, always so healing and good for my heart. And I believe it will be healing and good for your hearts as well. Something else I really recommend doing is getting a Bible verse that is just for you about who you are and how God sees you. And it might take you all year to search for that Bible verse, or you might be thinking of one right now that you know that is God's calling card to you. Mine is in Deuteronomy, and I got it 2 years ago. It was spoken, prophesied over me from somebody who had just heard my whole life story, which is a hard story to hear, and it just stuck out to him that this is what God wanted to say to me. And ever since then, it's been just something that I hold on to and that I cling to when the storms are rough, when the water is rushing in. I know I can cling to this verse and know that these things are true about me, and then everything else doesn't really matter. And so I'm going to read it to you. If you want to borrow my verse until you find your own verse, you totally can. But it's from Deuteronomy. And actually I'm reading it from the Voice Bible, which is really such a cool Bible, a translation of the Bible. It has, well, we can talk about it later. We'll talk about it in another post, but it's really cool. So it says this: remember that you are a people set apart for the eternal your God. He is your God, and he has chosen you to be his own possession, his special people. Out of all the peoples on the earth, the Eternal didn't become devoted to you and choose you because you were the most numerous of all the peoples. In fact, you were the least. Instead, he brought you out of Egypt with overwhelming power and liberated you from slavery to Pharaoh the king because he loved you and was keeping an oath he swore to his ancestors. To me, that says God chose me because I was his treasure. And he didn't choose me because I was the best or I had the most to offer him. He chose me just because he loves me. And he brought me out of slavery and out of the bondage to my old life to live in freedom, and freedom abundantly. And that's what I have, and that's what's available to you. And what it requires of you is believing in your own beautiful and belovedness, and believing that he is faithful, and that he is true to his word, and that Jesus in you makes you the most valuable. Because you are beautiful and you're beloved, and I'm glad you stopped by today, and I hope to see you again next week.